It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hey there, hope you had a good weekend and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We've got a packed program for you today, so please hit that share button so we can share this program with lots of people. Today's show is being sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Today, this week, as last week, they were having a great sale on MyPillow dog beds, just $20 for a very plush. You can see that little Bowser on TV there, all nice and relaxed on that beautiful Lindell doggy pillow. You can get yours for $20. That's 50% off when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. You enter those 6 little letters and you get half off on a sparkling doggy bed. Today, we start at a high school in Indiana where some very disturbing video has surfaced of a veteran teacher chasing down a boy in the hallway and striking him across the face with an open hand. This is kind of an interesting twist because usually the violence that we've seen, the kind of beating up of teachers or vice versa that we've seen, has come from more progressive teachers usually. Here, we have a longtime conservative teacher, 40 years service in this Indiana school, deeply loved figure in the community. He has parents, the fact that parents piled out to not defend what he did, but to defend his record. So here's Katie with the details.
So this happened in Elkhart, Indiana, and we're talking about Mike Hosinski, and he was basically forced now into early retirement from Jimtown High School, and he's been there, as you said, for about 40 years. And we're going to show from the newscast what the video actually shows, and we don't have all the details, so you can make your own distinction as to what actually is happening. But I think the broader picture to take a look at is we have a 40-year veteran teacher who struck a student and then is forced into early retirement, but the parents are all on, not all the parents, but a lot of parents are on his side. Are there parents on the other side, or where do you draw the line about, teacher punishment with students? This has been the debate for eons, but take a look at the news and then we'll talk about it.
This was a mugshot released Thursday by the Elkhart County Sheriff's Office of former Jimtown High School teacher Mike Hosinski. He was arrested Thursday on a preliminary charge of battery, which is a level 6 felony.
It's a range of 6 months to 2.5 years and a penalty of up to $10,000.
This coming after the teacher struck the student in the face with an open-handed slap last Friday.
I'm not completely surprised based on the limited video that's been made available. So that's certainly the type of charge that you could expect out of that situation. Of course, we don't know all the facts, and there's the presumption of innocence, so you have to give, at this point, the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, there's a lot of that optics there is not really very good for the teacher. And 40 years is a pretty good run. I mean, 40 years in a public school system. Imagine what this guy has seen in American public education for the last 40 years that would cause his nerves to fray quite a bit. But as Katie pointed out, there is a lot of interesting stuff going on here. We actually have students who are willing to walk out of school on his behalf, which tells you that there's more to the story. WSB-TV reported that students arranged a walkout from school on Monday in support of Hosinski. Additionally, a Change.org petition with more than 1,300 signatures was launched to save the educators' retirement, pension, and tenure. So that's the big thing. I mean, I think this is a classic after 40 years, golden parachute, right? Let him ease quietly into the sunset, let him keep his pension, which apparently would be threatened by these charges. One student told WSBT that the student who was attacked is, quote, a troubled student, unquote, who often cusses out and disrespects authorities. In other words, your typical public school kid. Even so, Hosinski should never, of course, laid hands on him.
And we do know that Hosinski did keep the pension. Now, they shut down that Change.org petition. They got what they wanted with it. And at that school board meeting where they addressed it, the parent of the boy who was struck came in, was very upset. And according to people at the meeting, he was shouting expletives at the administrators before being escorted out. So the father then is said to have said, a grown 280-pound man smacked my son in the face. And I guess he was on his way to the superintendent as he was shouting that. But again, he was taken out of the meeting. And so it is interesting when you think about this exact scenario. And that's what's interesting, is because we're talking about a very specific case, because each case is specific. Instead of doing these blanket policies, which we've been doing at our public schools and all schools for eons now, and it's what has it resulted in? Oh, the no bullying policy, or the teachers are not allowed to punish students at all for anything. And so these blanket policies then become very specific, nuanced things. Now, I, of course, am not at all condoning what that man did in terms of hitting a child. I'm just looking deeper into the actual situation.
In 2020, Hosinski was named Teacher of the Year, according to a Jimtown High School social media post. But the South Bend Tribune noted that Hosinski's conduct as a teacher has been criticized by at least one other time in his recent history. Apparently, once a few years ago, he was saying unkind things about Hillary Clinton, including in class, including calling her a criminal, which strikes one as pretty obvious. I got to tell you, though, anecdotally, 30 years ago when I was in high school, that kind of open-handed slapping, that happened all the time. I can give you one example. And again, not by way of condoning. Shows you how much things change. We were in math class, and we had a former Ohio State football offensive lineman as our coach, big guy. He was probably 280 easy, same size as Mr. Hosinski. But he had a short temper, and one day he came in to give us an exam. And when he gave us our geometry test, he put a newspaper up in front of his face. Now, those of us who knew, we could take one look and see he had cut out a hole in the middle of the newspaper, kind of a joke, I guess. So he puts the paper up to his face, but where he's watching us, anyway, one poor kid, dumb kid in the back, didn't see the hole. So he's suddenly looking over on everybody's paper. He's going into full cheat mode. After about 2 minutes of this, the teacher put the paper down, went and grabbed the kid, went out into the hallway, and because of the way the lights were, we could see the shadow of him, the teacher, and the much smaller kid. And all of a sudden, the shadow of the little kid gets picked up, and banged against the locker 3 times. And that was considered, just punishment back in the 1980s. So I suppose civility for children, whether they deserve it or not, has come a long way.
Are you a fan of the show? Consider joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation of $99 a year keeps us going. Simply visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us to pledge your support and receive our signature tumbler as a token of our appreciation. We've got much more to come. Stay with us.
We're going to skip over Illinois and go into Iowa, where at least there the legislature is proposing putting cameras. That's right, I said cameras in every public school classroom in the state. The bill is HF 2177 if you want to take a look at it, and it would require cameras in every public school classroom in the state except for physical education and special ed classes. And it said that parents, guardians, and others could then view the classroom live stream. Let's take a look at what the news had to say.
Educators are expressing concern over a controversial bill at the State House. The measure calls for cameras to be placed in all Iowa classrooms. That way parents can see what's going on at their child's school.
I think it helps continue the parental involvement that has occurred due to COVID.
Republican State Representative Norland Momsen authored the bill. Some educators fear the cost to install these cameras into classrooms could be pricey. The bill outlines the school would foot the bill to pay for the new technology.
Our funding stream is shrinking. We are being asked to take more out of that instead of finding more to serve the students that we have.
But Momsen argues schools could use equipment they already have.
I will respectfully disagree with them, because we already have a system through COVID.
He says using the cameras on teachers' laptops would be the most cost-effective way to roll out this plan. Those laptops would be set in the back of the class so the privacy of students can be protected. But the Iowa State Education Association argues this practice could be too invasive for students and teachers.
There are federal laws that this bill violates in terms of privacy. and the work that our students do in our classrooms.
That president of the Iowa State Education Association, I love the fact that he first goes to money, right? If that's where you're going to start with this, that we have a limited budget and that budget is shrinking, I'd like to see the public school in this country where the budget is actually receding. When you think about how much money every year and how much more money they get every year dumped into their coffers, it is hard to believe that such a scenario is actually true, because it takes a lot of creative accounting to say that your schools are constantly losing money. But the bigger problem here, and it's one that I'm sympathetic to as a teacher, teaching is one of those things where you are really at the mercy, in many respects, of what the kids take where they're going to take you. If you're going to have a serious discussion, unlike math and biology and chemistry, things that are pretty cut and dried, when you're teaching in the humanities, you want kids to be open-ended. You want kids to be able to express themselves. The books that you give them themselves are going to be, if they're the right kind of books, getting them to think critically about a wide range of things. And the problem with that is that with these cameras are going to be highly debilitating for teachers, because you've got to react to what the kids are going to do, and to react spontaneously and honestly, sometimes you have to be colloquial, sometimes you have to be jokey or sarcastic, sometimes you have to be creative in how you respond. Sometimes you have to meet kids where they are. There have been many times where kids in my classes at the university level have said shocking things that you have to respond to. With this now added pressure of the camera, what are teachers going to do? If a kid says something borderline in class, in order to protect yourself because it's on film, are you going to stop the class, send the kid to the principal's office? Without all of that scrutiny, you might just kind of try to laugh it off and move on and hope nobody complains about it later. It really is a difficult thing to do already, this kind of spontaneity and adaptability that you have to have as a teacher. That camera is going to kill that. I mean, it may protect in some ways against the most extreme kind of leftism, for instance, but it's also going to do a lot of damage to how teachers interact with children.
Just as video killed the radio star, it is quite possible that video could kill the education process, but it's already on its way down anyway. The bill that they come up with is still in subcommittee, and we'll see if it ever gets out of subcommittee. But as you had seen with Mike Baranek, the president of the Iowa State Education Association, he actually, said this was outrageous and dangerous. And using those terms, it makes me giggle inside, because as we know from any union president or advocate, the outrageous and dangerous that is happening in our education system is not necessarily what he's saying. But we do have Becky Pringle, who is the president of the, National Education Association, which is the largest of the teachers' unions, not like Randy Weingarten, who's second in the size of teachers' union. Poor Randy. But anyway, Becky Pringle actually said that some politicians around the country want to limit not only what history our kids can learn about, and what books they can read, censor the truth of our history in some cases, and now in Iowa, they want to install classroom cameras for live monitoring of teachers. So as you could predict, anything that could potentially affect the teachers in any way, the teachers' unions are on it, because they are all about being on it.
And when you hear Becky Pringle speak, I want to put the cameras right on the teachers. And let me just say this. The reason we're even talking about cameras on teachers is because of the outrageous behavior of teachers, the liberties they're taking with education in our classrooms. Nobody elected them. Nobody voted them. Nobody agreed. There was no referendum. There was no conversation between parents and schools about your hijacking of education in the name of progressive causes. You've done it. And so, yeah, that's right. Any kind of a history that lies about history, you shouldn't teach. Any history that paints an entire country as nothing but a systemically racist country on the basis of something that happened 200 years ago, yeah, that shouldn't be taught. So maybe if you're going to keep pushing that, particularly you idiots at the school unions, maybe then, as much as I am sympathetic to teaching, maybe that's why they want film. Maybe that's why they want cameras.
Today's show is sponsored by Clean Start Hand Sanitizer. For an odor-free foam hand sanitizer that lasts 2 hours and provides 19 refills, visit freedomproject.com/clean. That's KLEEN to order yours today.
Every single year, when March rolls around and it becomes March 2nd, and that means it's Dr. Seuss's birthday, and that means the woke have to complain about something. And this year we have a treat for you because, hey, we're going to now edit and make up our own books of what Dr. Seuss may have thought. But, don't worry, it's going to be a racially diverse team who is doing this. So everyone be happy or something. So Dr. Seuss Enterprises, which was started by his family members and now who's controlling it over there, they announced that some of Dr. Seuss's unpublished sketches, because, the man came up with how many books and did how many sketches and created how many words, and it's insane. You should look it all up. But anyway, the unpublished sketches, that he had some, they're going to be released. But of course, we must edit them with this inclusive group. Now, the sketches are going to serve as the basis for a new line of books that will be written and illustrated by said inclusive group. And the books are going to be published in a new Seuss Studios series to be aimed at readers from ages 4 to 8. So those really just starting reading. The woke are going to be editing those. So think about if you want to give your children anything new from Dr. Seuss, even though he's not here anymore.
When Dr. Seuss was writing these books in the 40s and the 50s, he was absolutely one of the most inclusive writers in the world. He hasn't changed. What's changed is your stupid definition of inclusivity, right? So unless every page has equal gender representation or the right color, skin color, that's the world has changed, Seuss has not. So leave his damn books alone. Leave his damn books alone. If you want to take some of his private pictures and maybe some short stories or some other writings that he's had but that has never seen the light of day and put together a new series that isn't really by him, it's by Seuss Studios but not really by Seuss, could probably live with this, but let's take a look at the video.
It really does lend itself to opening up to being inclusive of all races. One of the ways we need to be inclusive in our society today is to look at the divide between the socioeconomic areas. And so, there's many ways to look at things. And I think that, and I'm hopeful that these books are going to maintain the element of fun and imagination and focus on sounds and learning for young kids.
So what they're doing at Dr. Seuss Enterprises is making new storylines. The books, as I said before, are published by Seuss Studios, and the first two titles actually are set already to hit the shelves next year. And according to the reps from Dr. Seuss Enterprises, it's going to be a new set of up-and-coming authors and illustrators, and this is where that inclusive storyline is coming in, and it's inspired by the drawings that we already have of Dr. Seuss. And one of the drawings, if you take a look at it, it's like a little, his animals are kind of hard to, but it looks kind of like a bunny, essentially a bunny, but he's got giant ears. So that storyline they're going to talk about probably, being different because he has giant ears. And it's a really cute little sketch he's got there. So I'll read the book before I read it to my children, but we'll see what actually happens with it. Now, the person you had actually just seen was Pamela Good, who's the president of Beyond Basics, which is a Michigan-based nonprofit that promotes literacy. And what she's talking about there, from her perspective, she started this organization 2 decades ago because she saw in Detroit how bad the literacy rate was for the students. So she single-handedly started this organization to try to get students to read. Now, whether or not we're going way beyond just getting the students to read into that whole indoctrination element. But she's optimistic, I guess, based off of what she just said, that it will be inclusive. Now, what her definition of inclusive is, I'm not sure.
It's time now for some real education. This week, we're showcasing another one of our wonderful video series for children and for adults called 56 Signers of the Declaration of Independence. Today, we're going back to take a look at Benjamin Franklin and Charles Carroll. This is the kind of things we do. We have the Presidential Minute that we've previewed. Now, this is the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. Really critical stuff. And I hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoyed making it.
Let me tell you a little story about a man named Benjamin Franklin. Born in Boston, Massachusetts on January 17, 1706, Benjamin was born into a very large family, being the 15th of 17 children. At the age of 12, Franklin wrote the famous Silence Dogood letters. Though Benjamin was self-educated, he was awarded honorary degrees from Harvard and Yale, as well as doctorates from the universities of Edinburgh and Oxford. Benjamin was involved in countless areas of politics. Most notably, he was on the Committee of Five in the Continental Congress, where they drafted and signed the Declaration of Independence. He would later sign the United States Constitution, making him one of 6 people to sign both documents. Among other things, Franklin was an extraordinary inventor, creating things from lightning rods, the Franklin stove, bifocal glasses, to the wind tunnel. Franklin died on April 17, 1790, at the age of 84. And there you go, a little story about a man named Benjamin Franklin. Let me tell you a little story about a man named Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Born in Annapolis, Maryland on September 19, 1737, Charles would become the last surviving signer of the Declaration of Independence. Carroll traveled to France at the age of 8 to study at a Jesuit college at Saint-Omer at the College of Louis the Grand, as well as studies in Paris and London. When he returned to America, he identified with the American Patriots, where he became committed to the Revolution. Charles served on the First Committee of Safety at Annapolis, the Provincial Congress, and the Continental Congress, where he signed the Declaration of Independence. Carroll would later serve on the Board of War during the Revolutionary War, the Maryland Senate, and the First Federal Congress. Among other civic contributions, he was a strong proponent of abolishing slavery. Charles died on November 14, 1832, at the age of 95. And there you go, a little story about a man named Charles Carroll of Carrollton.
And I just want to take one moment here to thank our Patriot Club members for making those videos and all the other videos possible. Their financial support provides the resources, the money to bring the stories to life for all of you and to enjoy. So if you're not already a member, please consider joining our Patriot Club with a $99 gift to support educational videos like our 56 Signers series. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get started. That's patriotclub.us. All right, now before we go, we want to show some love to those Patriot Club members, and today we're giving our shout out to Mark from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Mark, thank you for supporting us.
Is that Allentown where they closing all the factories down? And that wraps up this show for Freedom Project, a great big Billy Joel shout out to all those Pennsylvania fans. I'm Duke, she's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.